This is Richard Matthews, Mess About 1, and this video will be a short, simple tutorial about how to adjust for green screen use in Sony Vegas. My particular Sony Vegas is Sony Vegas Pro 12. And in my last video, one of my viewers had a question about how I had adjusted in my editing software to use green screen in that video. William Marler over in the UK had the question. So William, maybe I can do a simple explanation of how I do it. And like a lot of other things with computers, there's not just one way to do things. So some other people that use Sony Vegas or do video editing for green screens may have a different method. Not saying mine is the best way, but mine is the way that I've learned to do my editing. So what you will see on the screen, I'm using some software called Cam Studio that will record what I say and also record what is seen on my computer screen. And what I have on the screen right now is Sony Vegas 12 is open. I have most of the elements, the parts that I used in my last video still shown on the editing software. So I'll just kind of go through and give an explanation of how I did it and what I did, and see if that will answer your question. Right here you'll see what my camera was seeing. I have a green screen out, I call it my barn studio. I have a office area in the upstairs of my barn out behind my house, and I've kind of used it for my YouTube work, my video work, and also my ham radio. I have a ham radio station set up and things like that. So this is kind of my studio office ham shack here that I'm speaking from. What you see here is what my camera was seeing, and the green screen behind me is a green piece of cloth that hangs fairly flat from the ceiling straight down. It's about 9 feet wide and about 12 feet long. Part of it comes down and kind of lays out on the floor. I have it lighted with 4 spiral bulbs, daylight bulbs on one side, and 4 spiral fluorescent daylight bulbs on the other side. I also have one bulb up above me here that kind of lights, gives some lighting to the top of my head. And like I said, I'm sitting about 3 feet out in front of the screen. On out in front of me is another set of lights that kind of lights my whole body, and off to this side is another light that just kind of gives you a contrast of this side of my body being lighter than that side of my body. So that's the setup you're seeing there. Down here you'll see the timelines of the different things I used to make that video. This one being the one that is displayed here on this display is what my camera saw. Of course, that one is a soundtrack. What I want to show here, and it won't be the same background I used in my video, but I have a background that I've chosen right here that I'll demonstrate how to get that to fall in behind between me and the green screen, or actually replace the green screen with this photograph. If you'll notice in the timelines here that shows some precedence, the higher up in the timelines these elements are, the more prominent they are. In other words, this one will cover this one, will cover this one on down. This one being the furthest back in the picture, and this one being the closest to the front in the picture. So if you have one in front, it'll cover up anything that's back in behind. So we need to talk about how we actually tell the software that we want to do chroma keying and take advantage of the green screen that I have set up here in my recording. Sony Vegas has a bunch of different elements in the software that you can use to edit videos with. The particular one we'll use for this is called Video FX or Video Effects, and it offers you just a whole bunch of effects that you can choose from to work on your video. Our particular one, since we're working with the green screen, we'll want to use a chroma keyer, And it is simple. There's different ways to tell Sony Vegas that you want to use this, but the simplest way, and the way I prefer, is just to drag and drop onto my timeline down here the chroma key. And if you'll notice here, you'll see it's already taken effect. It's replaced that green screen with just a black background. Before I did that, maybe I should show you another way to do it. I'm going to remove that. I can just delete that. The preferable way to do this, to get it even closer to using it with what we have as a green screen, is to look in this box here that gives you a different choice of how you're going to use the green screen and or the chroma key. And since we're using it for green screen, we'll drag this down and drop it, and it'll be set up for green screen. And you'll notice here the color that it is expecting to be in the background is that bright green color, which is very close to what we have on our green screen. After you do that, you need to do some adjustment, and in this adjustment box you have here, you'll see you could change the color if you want to. I don't think we need to. You can also adjust the thresholds for the background and the foreground, which are these two here. They have a low threshold and a high threshold. You can do it with just using the photograph and the background, but you're better off to use a mask. But before I do that, I want to move into the area, our background. You'll notice I have it down here on the timeline. I can slide it around the timeline. This is the area we're seeing right now, where that little line is. So all you're seeing right now is what I took with the camera, and the effect has already been brought in for chroma keying. But watch what happens when I bring in my background. I'll move it into the area that's stopped on, and if you'll notice up here, it just slides that behind my image, since it's lower down in the box. So you see it put it in behind my image. But if you'll notice, it's not perfect. There's some little bubbles that are showing through my body and my face there, and of course that's not what we want. But that is what the low threshold and high threshold adjustment is for. But before we do that, I'm going to turn on this function that says mask only, and watch the image when I turn on the mask. You see it's put kind of a white mask over my body, and you can tell the background is lightened up some, but we'll take care of that. All right, watch when I move my slow threshold, what's happens to the picture. Now see, it's so strong if you put it all the way over to maximum that you're actually taking up some of my foreground image. So I want to pull it back until that just stops. You can see where the background fades and the foreground starts to fade. So I'm going to say about right there. Now we can adjust the foreground image by using the high threshold adjustment. And watch what happens to it as I move it down a bit lower. It's turned into pure white, and I want to stop it when it's just done its thing before it starts affecting the background. So that's pretty good. And if you want to see how it looks, you click on right here, and that's not bad. Now sometimes, depending on how good of a job you've done with the background and the frontal image, you'll see maybe a little rough area, a little covered area around the mine's not too bad. You can see a little blue right in there. But it has a function here also where you can adjust that where the background meets the foreground, and that is called, let me move down here a little bit, blur amount. I was looking everywhere but the right place, but that's called the blur amount, and what that is, the amount of blur you want to allow. If you overdo that, right now it's on 0. Now watch what happens if you give it more. It can get real ugly in a hurry. It just blurs too much. But you want that fine line, so, and you can input it. I could say I want it 0.005, and that'll give you just a little bit. And you can adjust it that fine here. But if you notice that blur amount, we're going to leave it on 0. I think it looks the best. If you have a real jagged edge between your foreground and background, you can use that. So that's pretty well got it. As far as making the background take the place of the green in the original video. Now, if you noticed in my video, I also had a little TV screen kind of up this area here, and I was putting photographs on it of things I was talking about. That's not really part of the green screen process. All it is I brought in a JPEG image that was trimmed to the size outside of that flat screen TV screen, and since it's above my video recording, it takes precedence over it. So watch when I pull it in, you'll see a little screen appear there. So there it is, and that's just because it's in the higher pecking order of video tracks here. It just goes in front. And these things are not, as you saw me move that around, these things are not locked in place. I can adjust this image, that image, or this image, and the way you do that is by choosing the event pan and crop feature, and you'll see my original video recording here. Well, what that lets you do is actually have control of that image. You can make it smaller, bigger, however you want to do it, and you can move it around. So that gives you a lot of control over your editing. If things are not just where you want them, you still have the ability to move them around some. I'm going to try to get him back in line. There you go. And same thing, you can do the same thing with the background here. If you go to its pan and crop feature, and if you wanted to make the bubbles more prominent, you can zoom in. Slightly overdone. Or you can zoom out, and they can also be turned. If you want to turn them in a different way, you have that control. So it's very powerful editing, excuse me, very powerful editing software that lets you not only replace that background with whatever you want to, it also lets you put other elements in a stack up. You could do just as many stack ups as you wanted to. You could have things in front of other things for 10 deep if you wanted to. I don't know why why you'd want to do that, but you could do that. So that's about it, William. Hope my simple explanation has answered your question. If it hasn't, just ask more and I'll be glad to show more. But like I said, everybody that does video editing, and depending on the software they're using, I suppose, would have done that in a different way. But that's just a simple way that I do it. I wasn't real pleased with my green screening on that last video. I had too much gray in it, and I sometimes get in a hurry and don't spend all the time I should on making my finished product as good as it should be. Now, I'm just a hobbyist, and sometimes I get impatient and want to get it uploaded, and I'll do things in a hurry and then regret that I did that in a hurry later on. But I'll let this run a little bit. Let's see, and you'll just see that it does work. So right here, I can tell it to run, and you'll see it start working.
Hello, YouTubers. This is Mess About One, Richard Matthews, located in the northeast corner of the state of Alabama, in the deep south of the United States of America. And today is Thursday.
And that's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. Anybody else out there has any questions? I'm not an expert by any means. I'm self-taught on using my video software and camera equipment and editing software and such as that. But I get a big kick. This is a lot of the fun of making YouTube videos, is being able to play around with this high-tech software. Just a few years ago, not many years ago at all, it would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to have done what I can do with this little piece of software here now. And at one time, the only people that would have had such good editing software would have been major movie makers, TV studios, and movie studios. So it's really a privilege to be able to do this. I've always enjoyed audio and video my whole life, just since I was a kid. I messed around with such things. So this is just this is just a pleasure to me to get to do this. And of course the people I meet on YouTube too is a big part of it, making friends worldwide and having communications and discussions with people in different cultures and different parts of the world. Makes it all a whole lot of fun. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, sometimes people complain about video makers always asking for subscriptions, but if you're watching and not a subscriber, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get notifications when I post anything, and it makes puts a little a gem in my crown as being a YouTube video maker. People look at how many subscribers you have sometime. I've not sought that over my 10 years on YouTube, but it's nice to have new people join up, and it gives a little better communication between me and the people that are my subscribers and viewers. So went on 16 minutes here. I'll turn it off and I'll see you a little further down the tube. Good night.